body was found near the Spalding Turnpike on the outskirts of Rochester, New Hampshire. She had been strangled to death. The woman was identified as 34-year-old Alene Courchesne, a divorcee with 3 daughters. Alene, whose friends knew her by the nickname Lulu, was engaged to Darren Healy, a local man who was then in jail. 6 months after Lulu's murder, police arrested the man she had last been seen with, Rick McHugh, who had moved to Rochester 3 weeks before the murder. At McHugh's trial, the prosecution theorized that Rick and Lulu had argued after a sexual liaison at his apartment.
Mr. Foreman has...
He had then killed her, probably in his pickup truck, and dumped the body.
How do you find the defendant, guilty or not guilty?
We find the defendant guilty.
On December 6, 1988, Rick McHugh was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole.
Don't worry, we'll start working on the appeal immediately. I can't believe this happened. We'll be in contact.
Almost 3 years later, one of the jurors from his trial came forward with a stunning declaration.
I felt that I had made a mistake at the trial by not fully grasping the evidence that was presented and the areas of doubt that were presented. And I feel now that there were enough areas of doubt that we shouldn't have convicted Richard McHugh at the time of the trial.
I mean, I feel bad for Aleene's family. I mean, they had a terrible loss. But putting an innocent man in prison doesn't help anybody's situation. And so I'm angry that it took so long for the truth to finally come out. It's been a long time coming.
In 2 weeks, Rick McHugh will get a second day in court. His retrial was granted based on the misconduct of one of the jurors, brought to light when Tom Magruder went public with his belief that Rick McHugh was not guilty. In addition, at least 2 witnesses have now come forward and stated that another man confessed to the murder.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing today?
I'm okay. How are you?
Pretty good.
Rick McHugh had met Lulu Courchesne at the convenience store where she worked less than 48 hours before she was murdered. Despite the fact that Lulu was wearing an engagement ring, she and Rick went out for drinks and made a second date for the next night, the night that would end in Lulu Courchesne's murder.
Hi.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Listen, I'm not quite ready yet. You want to just hang out for a minute?
Sure.
Okay, I'll be right out.
While Rick was waiting for Lulu, a man named Russell Healy entered the apartment without knocking.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
I'm Russell.
Rick.
Hey, where's Lulu?
Only later did Rick learn that Russell Healy's brother Darren was Lulu's fiancé.
How are you?
Just a friend of hers. I met her at the store the other day.
Hello. Hey, bro, how you doing?
A few minutes after Russell Healy arrived, his brother telephoned from jail.
Hi. Yeah, I'm okay.
She put her finger up to her mouth to me as a way, I guess, to, don't say anything. Like, shh.
I miss you too.
And then when she handed Russell the phone, he looked at me while he was telling his brother on the phone that, no, nobody else was there. I didn't know why he would be saying that. I was sitting right in front of him. I guess I put 2 and 2 together that maybe it's the guy who gave her the ring. And they didn't want her to get in trouble for me being there.
So what do you do for work?
I'm a painter.
A painter, huh? What do you paint?
I paint bridges.
Bridges?
That night, Rick and Lulu went to 2 different bars. They drank and shot pool until around 2 in the morning.
We went back out to my truck, and while it was warming up, we kissed a little bit and decided we were going to go back to my apartment.
Where are we going? Let's go there. Okay.
2 of Rick's friends, Cheryl and Marty McGuire, were visiting that night. They remember being awakened by Rick and Lulu.
It didn't sound like anything violent, just a normal, the 2 of them in the other room relationship. And Lulu had said, slow down. And then a minute later, Rick had said, get dressed. I'll take you home. And it was just a normal way of talking.
Did the defendant say anything in response once you said slow down?
Yes.
At Rick's trial, the prosecution tried to use Cheryl's testimony to establish a motive, claiming that Rick was angry with Lulu. Cheryl felt her words were misinterpreted.
They kept making an issue. Was he mad at her? Did he yell at her? How did he say it? It wasn't violent. It wasn't angry. It was just a normal tone of get dressed and I'll take you home.
When Cheryl McGuire heard Rick's truck pulling away, she went to the kitchen to call the all-night donut shop where she was employed. Phone records show that it was 2:42 a.m.
Hi, Mr. Harrison. This is Cheryl. There's no way I'm going to make it in there tomorrow.
According to Rick, he dropped Lulu at her apartment building sometime after 2:30 a.m. Lori Clark and her husband lived in the same building as Lulu. Lori was still awake when Rick McHugh brought Lulu home.
She shut those headlights out.
Lori claims she did not testify at Rick's trial because of recurrent health problems.
My bedroom window was right at the front of the building. When the truck pulled up, he was probably maybe 10 feet away from my front bedroom window. I heard Alene get out of the truck and walk up on the porch.
Hey, Lulu.
Huh?
Hey, forgot your stuff.
What?
Forgot your stuff.
They were talking kind of loud because of the muffler sound on the truck.
I handed her a pocketbook and her boots were also in the truck.
Thanks.
I handed those to her, said goodnight, and drove away. I went back home.
And then she went inside the hallway, and I heard like stumbling, almost like she was trying to crawl up the stairs like she was drunk. And then I heard one big bang.
What's she doing?
And then I didn't hear nothing else after that, and I just went to sleep.
Around 14 hours later, on Sunday afternoon, Lulu Courchesne's body was found. A gash over her right eye had produced a significant trickle of blood. On Wednesday, Rick McHugh was questioned at the police station.
And you never saw her again?
I never saw her again. That's it. That's my statement.
Later that day, the police took Rick's truck to make wheelbase measurements and to check it for blood and soil samples.
The police went out to the scene and they obtained a sample of the dirt from the area where the body was discovered, and they took that sample with the sample from the truck, and they sent it to the FBI lab, and that came back negative. As far as the blood was concerned, there was no blood found in McHugh's truck.
Several hours after the murder, Lulu's youngest daughter says she found blood in her mother's bathroom. Later, a bloody towel was discovered in a closet. Although that blood was never analyzed, some spatters remained in the front hall of the apartment building. 5 months after Rick McHugh was arrested, his attorney brought in a forensic chemist to test those blood spatters.
You mean you're still able to tell after this period of time?
Mm-hmm.
It was removed by the chemist, and they tested the droplets, and it was determined that it was human blood, and that it was type A, and that was the type that the victim had.
Despite the complete absence of blood in Rick McHugh's truck and the presence of blood in Lulu's apartment, the prosecution still contended that Rick had killed Lulu and dumped her body sometime between the time they left his apartment and the time he returned alone. Cheryl McGuire swears that he would not have had enough time.
It was approximately 15 minutes from the time of the phone call to the time Rick came back. I don't feel that he would have had enough time to strangle her, drop the body off, clean himself off, and come back. He had just enough time from where the apartment was to where her apartment was to drop her off, and that was the approximate time, 15 minutes, that he was gone.
The prosecution also claimed that wheelbase measurements taken near the spot where Lulu's body was found were consistent with Rick McHugh's vehicle.
Yeah, it's 9'6" right on.
The defense countered with an expert witness, Pete McDonald, former chief of design for Firestone Tire and Rubber.
I also observed that in the test impression,
Stud holes were present.
McDonald testified that the measurements did not match Rick's truck. During the jury deliberations, however, one member of the jury took it upon himself to conduct his own unscientific test, which he then shared with his fellow jurors.
Let me tell you this. This past weekend, I took a truck out in the sandy area, spun the wheels, took the same sharp turn. Every time I measured it, I got a different wheelbase measurement. You can't get an accurate wheelbase measurement in sand.
Several of the jurors now say that in the end, the issue of the wheelbase was essentially disregarded because it was so confusing.
The prosecution presented an awful lot of information that sort of obviously contradicted the defense's presentations. It got to a point where we were being overloaded with information on footprints and tire marks and wheel impressions, and I think that we couldn't grasp onto it.
With the wheelbase evidence in dispute, the jury came down on the side of the prosecution. After 2 days of deliberation, they found Rick McHugh guilty. When we return, new evidence suggests that one of the defense's own witnesses may have been responsible for the murder of Lulu Courchesne. In order to prove that Rick McHugh was guilty, the prosecution... New evidence suggests that one of the defense's own witnesses may have been responsible for the murder of Lulu Courchesne. In order to prove that Rick McHugh was guilty, the prosecution convinced the jury that he had killed Lulu Courchesne sometime after they left his residence. However, the only blood found during the investigation was at Lulu's apartment building, not at Rick McHugh's building or in his truck.
Let me just go back to that first visit to 20 Academy Street. How long were you upstairs?
At the trial, Russell Healy, the brother of Lulu's fiancée, was called on to explain why there was blood in Lulu's apartment.
Where was she shaving her legs?
In the living room.
And what was she using?
A shaver, razor blade.
Well, what were your observations about her shaving?
She was cutting her legs.
But did you actually see her bleeding?
Yes.
Oh, what leg did she cut?
I really can't remember.
Well, the towel that she used.
Russell Healy's testimony was inconsistent with what the autopsy report reflected.
It was white like that.
There were no scrapes or bruises or any marks on either leg. So there was a clear indication that Alene Courchesne did not cut her legs.
What did she do with the towel?
There was no bleeding.
She was wiping the blood.
And the autopsy report clearly reflected that.
Did you make a statement to the police?
Yes, I did.
Russell Healy's testimony led some to speculate that he was involved.
I believe that he murdered her.
This woman, Betty Grant, says she went to the police about 4 months after Lulu's murder, even though the police deny it.
And what about Russell Healy?
An acquaintance through the Dover projects.
Betty claims she had heard Russell Healy boast about killing Lulu.
One night I had spent over Karen's house, and he had said to me and Karen, well, nobody has to worry about Lulu anymore because I took care of her.
Did he ever say that to you again?
No.
Betty says the police did nothing to follow up.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Betty.
Then in September of 1991, Betty Grant decided she had to come forward
I
again.
think it's really important that you listen to what I have to say. I do believe what Russell Healy said to me that night. And I believe it just the way he had said it. It was like he was actually proud that, you know, just the way he said it. Convinced me.
Another eyewitness account also pointed to Russell Healy. Lulu Courchesne's 10-year-old daughter testified that she saw a man at her mother's apartment on the morning of the murder.
At 6 a.m., she was awakened by somebody in the shower. The shower stall was right next to her bedroom. She heard banging in the stall. Somebody was not too quiet. And somebody said, pass my pants, give me my pants. And that voice sounded like Russell Healy.
Russell Healy died of ALS, commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease, on November 5, 1991. Despite the allegations against him, many maintain that Healy was innocent.
it was just a couple days before he died, and I just all came out and asked him, did you? Was there anything you want to clear up, you know, before you go? And he said he didn't do it. And that was it. He's meeting his maker. He's not going to lie.
I'm certain that there is a great deal of more evidence out there. People who know that somebody other than Richard McHugh committed this crime. And I would just hope that he or she would have enough courage to come forward and to assist Richard McHugh in correcting this injustice.
So many friends and family out there that supported me. And, you know, they told me, no way, they're not going to stop fighting until I'm free. And I made them a promise that I wouldn't let this get me. I wouldn't let it get me down. I mean, I've had my bad days and my good days, but I'm hanging in there. My day will come.
Update. On January 19th, 1993, 2 weeks after this story originally aired, Rick McHugh was retried for the murder of Alene Courchesne. 5 weeks later, a jury found McHugh not guilty. He was immediately released from custody and is now back home with his family in Lowell, Massachusetts, after nearly 5 years in prison.